Welcome into your PFF Draft Review, powered by PFF Edge and Elite. Today it's all about the Tennessee Titans, Sam, who had a nice easy draft for us to review. Only 4 players, but they got a couple good ones. It started with Rashad Evans, first rounder, number 22 overall. Still a little bit higher than we would have liked because he has some question marks, but an interesting career path and a guy that certainly fills a need for the Titans.
Yeah, you can see why he would go in the first round. I think there were 3 guys that should have gone in the first round when it comes to linebackers. Rashad Evans was the 4th that I expected to probably go in the first round. And when you turn on the tape, it's easy to see why. He hits people with this reckless abandon. He just has a violent streak that none of these other guys really are able to match. But when you go through and you grade every single one of these plays the way we do a Pro Football Focus, you don't quite see the level of production that you saw from a guy like Roquan Smith or Leighton Vander Esch or even Tremaine Edmonds. But he's a really interesting player because he started off life at Alabama as a real legitimate edge rusher, not an off-the-ball linebacker at all, and he's transitioned into a completely different role. If you look here at the percentage of pass rush snaps by season, 2014, 2015, 81.5%, 62.1%. This was an edge rusher. This was a guy playing on the edge, trying to get pressure. Then 2016, 2017, 22.6% and lower. So he's moved into this off-the-ball linebacker spot, and now that represents this interesting facet of his game, this thing that he can do that some of these other off-the-ball linebackers can't, and actually a way that you may be able to hide some of his deficiencies.
Yeah, and he rushed the passer extremely well when he was just a designated edge rusher, going up against offensive tackles, extremely productive on his limited snaps. So yeah, he's still relatively young at the position. The big concern with us was the coverage numbers, because he's new at the position and didn't do it as well as some of those other guys that you mentioned. 76.6 coverage grade last year. Not great compared to some of the other guys, but I do think the pass rushing is where you kind of make up for that, right? It's today's NFL where you move guys around on third down. You're going to have 2 designated edge defenders. The Titans already have a few. We'll talk about their next one in a minute. But what about Evans moving him around, isolating him on running backs as more of a blitzer on third down? If that's what he's doing in passing situations, because that's his skill set, that's where he's really good. It's a lot like how New England has used Dante Hightower, Jamie Collins in the past. If you can use him that way, you kind of solve some of those coverage issues.
So that's like his ideal scenario, is becoming their version of Hightower. The question, though, is maybe he can play in coverage. It's just because he's so young at moving into these off-the-ball linebacker positions, he's not great at it right now. But if he can develop that part of his game, that might just be something that comes down the line. And in the short term, you can use him as a blitzer and actually take advantage of his pass rushing skills, particularly against running backs. The same way Hightower does for New England. If you get that guy matched up one-on-one with a running back, running backs cannot block Rashad Evans one-on-one. It's not going to happen. It's game over if that happens.
That's my favorite thing to do, is watch guys go from college. They're beating tackles. You go to the NFL. You isolate them on running backs. They're going to win those more often than not.
So you could potentially hide him a little bit in coverage on first and second downs, unleash him as a blitzer, as an extra guy against running backs, and take advantage of that plus his ability against the run. And then maybe you'll see in a couple of years' time he starts to round out as a truly well-rounded coverage defender as well, and then you've got a legitimate first-round linebacker.
So when we looked at the Titans coming into the draft, definitely thought the middle of the field, linebacker in particular, is certainly a need there. And then edge rush, a place where they've had Brian Orakpo, Derek Morgan. Those guys have been there for a few years now. You need that next guy. You need the next guy to step up. And they moved up to go get Harold Landry, our top edge defender, a guy that we had as a top 10 type of player in this draft. He came in with some question marks, but he fell to 41, which we feel maybe the steal of the entire draft, getting our top guy, a top 10 player on the PFF board at 41 overall.
Love this pick. This was one of the best picks in the entire draft. Harold Landry did have some injury concerns, had a rough 2017 season, but go back a year. Look at that 2016 season. It is the best single season of pass rush we've seen from any of these edge rusher prospects in this draft. Significantly better than anything we've seen from Bradley Chubb, who everybody else outside of the building, everyone that hasn't gone through and watched and graded every single snap of these guys in their college careers, thought that Chubb was the guy. But Harold Landry's 2016, 89.0 PFF grade, significantly, almost 4 points higher than Bradley Chubb's 2017 grade.
And I went in depth on that Bradley Chubb grade. We have a Bradley Chubb video here. If you're on YouTube, just click over and go check out the Bradley Chubb scouting report, and the Harold Landry scouting report gets into more detail as well. But I explained why that mid-80s type of pass rush grade for Chubb is concerning. And it's because recent top 10 picks like Myles Garrett, Joey Bosa, they crushed our PFF play-by-play system as pass rushers. Their peak pass rush grades were in the low 90s, and that's where Landry was, 89 in 2016. So his peak is right up there with some of those guys who have translated well to the NFL. All the guys that have been in the mid-80s with their peak, they've struggled a little bit. They've been okay, they've been average. Landry's high-end play, especially as a pass rusher, as good as it gets in this entire class. And then when you just look at on-field traits and the bend and the burst and all the things that a scout's going to be, checking off the list, he has all of that as well. Also, quietly, in 2015, his breakout season, excellent run defender. We're talking high 80s run grade. You can find out all of his year-by-year gradings in the PFF draft guide. It's all part of PFF Edge in Elite. So I don't want to completely forget about 2017 for Harold Landry, but we've seen so much good play from him. We felt comfortable putting him as a top 10 player.
And at the start of that year, he looked good as well. It was clearly an injury that started to hamper him as the year wore on, eventually led him to be shut down. He wasn't that guy at the start of the year. He was the same player he was at the end of 2016. We saw a legitimate edge rush from him.
The other notable pick in the Titans' four-man draft is sixth rounder Luka Fock. Everybody wants to make the connection because he was number 199 overall, Sam, just like Tom Brady. It's the next Tom Brady, right?
Just like Tom Brady, yeah.
Maybe not?
No.
Here's the deal with Fock. I mean, he came into the season as an intriguing prospect who you could see clearly lacks arm strength and just natural athleticism on the field. He doesn't move very well. When you look at all the quarterbacks at the top of this draft class, other than maybe Mason Rudolph, and he ended up in the third, all of those guys at the top of the draft can move. They maneuver the pocket very well. They're just better athletes than Fock. He had great pass protection at Washington State. When it broke down, he wasn't avoiding sacks a whole lot. And I know he played through injury last year, but he just did not have the arm to drive the ball outside the numbers or down the field.
Doesn't have a big arm at all. And it manifests itself particularly, I think, on deep passes. I don't think those are often connected or not always connected, whether it's arm strength and deep passes. A lot of that is timing and putting the ball in the air early enough. But Luka Fock is consistently off when it comes to those deep balls, almost always underthrows them. So I think it's a combination of both, whether it's arm strength and putting the ball in the air too late. And we saw that at the Senior Bowl as well. And the Senior Bowl really showed everything we talked about. His tape there shows some pretty good accuracy. He's definitely got the anticipation, the ability to put the ball where he wants it. But it also showed this relatively uncomfortable looking athlete when he has to be on the move. And then finally, this last play in the sequence we're going to be looking at, it shows that underthrown deep ball. A guy that was definitely open deep down the field, had a step on a cornerback, has to adjust, try and come back to a ball that isn't leading him over his shoulder, and that's really the story of particularly his deep passing.
It showed up in his big-time throw percentage. Those are PFF's highest-graded throws, the ones that are more difficult. Tight window throws, you needed either a big arm, great anticipation, great accuracy. He was only 34th out of 38 qualifiers in this draft class. But then last year making a ton of bad decisions as well, 28th out of 38 at avoiding turnover-worthy plays. Those are those plays that should be interceptions, the bad fumbles. It's a bad combination for Fock. So he did have better years earlier in his career. 84 overall grade in 2015, 87.2 in 2016. That dropped to only 79.3 last year. That was 22nd in the draft class alone. So Fock, he's a sixth-round pick for a reason. I don't think he's the next Tom Brady, but a worthwhile look as a potential backup.
But the similarities are endless. Pick 199, the end.
And that'll do it. That is your Tennessee Titans draft recap. It's all been powered by PFF Edge and Elite.